What does being a bakla mean to you? And do you think language is important when it comes to being queer?
I don't know who is following it up or saying that it is a priority measure because it is not.
The push to prohibit discriminatory practices on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity expression, or SOGI, faces tough opposition in the Philippine Congress.
Another bill concerning the LGBTQ plus community was reverted back to the Senate committee level due to issues brought up by religious groups.
Last June 30, Time issued an article named Southeast Asia's most gay-friendly country still has no law against LGBT discrimination.
Members of the LGBT community who have lost their jobs, their opportunities, their education, and in the worst cases, even their lives.
I think it's important to differentiate between structural acceptance and cultural acceptance. When it comes to culture, I think our culture is very accepting of queer lifestyle. Even during pre-colonial times, the different cultures in Southeast Asia, they've been more accepting of gender and sexual diversity. So there were different, like almost 50 different gender and sexual identities, right? So this was before the Western SOGI framework was imposed on that. You see that, right? Especially like in the lower middle class. So culturally, we're accepting. Structurally, we're not very accepting. And it's because the powers that be, they're still very much anchored or rooted in those colonial homophobic and transphobic paradigms. So that I think explains why Time, on one hand, could say that we're very accepting, we're very open, because on an interpersonal, intersubjective level, we're very accepting as a culture, but when it counts, for the laws and the legal protections and whatnot, we're not.
It is only still a distant dream to be able to marry as a same-sex couple in the country. With the government strongly tied to conservative religious groups, the efforts of the LGBTQ plus community still face heavy opposition towards same-sex marriage.
It's a matter of policy that whether we will accept it or not, and I think that we know as a country that we are not ready for that. Kasi minsan imposition na nangyayari, and we are not ready for that. Culturally, we are not ready for that.
Political system, our political system is still very much informed by homophobic and transphobic paradigms. Number one, mahirap matinag yon kasi very much embedded yon sa political institutions natin. Pangalawa, yung political system natin, it's really serving the interest of the dynastic elites. And this is not necessarily related to the LGBTQ persons, but this applies generally, right? So our politicians, if it doesn't align with their dynastic interest, meaning, they won't be earning, they won't be getting anything back from it. So they're not going to be very supportive. Yung social change in the Philippines, it's really very slow. And then lastly, ang pinaka-fourth reason talaga is our community is still building up its strength. And I can really see the change from the 90s when everything felt precarious kasi parang napaka-isolating being an LGBTQI advocate in the 90s kasi wala talagang support. So in a way, although hindi napasa yung mga bills to protect LGBTQI people, hindi napasa yung same-sex marriage, the advocacy around those two issues have really helped build the community. It's important to continue discussing and continue advancing those issues, right? Like keep it in the public consciousness, continue the educational/advocacy work, and convincing our fellow Filipinos to support our human rights. HIV/AIDS prevention work in the Philippines really started in the 90s, right? So, there was a global crisis. So it's not just about being transphobic, although that's definitely a big part of that. But there's also a racial component